Hi, I'm Kristen Watson. I live in Houston, Texas, but I grew up in Kansas. I graduated from KU in 2010 with my Bachelor's of Science in Math Education as part of the 5-year program. I moved to Houston in 2011 after I finished my 5th year to begin teaching, and in January 2016, I began taking master's courses online to finish my degree. I am certified to teach grades 4 through 12 math in Texas. This is my 6th year teaching, and in 6 years I have taught 6 different preps, including 8th grade math, Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. I have taught in both middle school and high school, and I am currently teaching at an urban high school in Houston. I teach Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. In the state of Texas, Algebra 1 is the high school math course that takes the state assessment. Because I am in a high school setting, I have students from 9th through 12th grade. My school receives Title I funding as most of my students are low SES. There are over 40 different languages spoken at my school. Almost half of my students are bilingual, and many of them are still learning English. I have 2 students who speak only Spanish and 1 that speaks only Persian. My school is a magnet school that is set up into houses. The houses are divided based on the students' interests. The house that I am a member of is Business and Culinary Arts. The students in my house are interested in pursuing a career in either business or culinary arts. Our culinary arts program is sponsored by the Culinary Institute of America, and we have a restaurant on campus run by the students. The school is also divided into professional learning communities for the teachers, and we meet in these communities at least once a week. I am proud of how supportive the school is of the students and the teachers. There are many options for the students and teachers to get involved in the school. Now I am going to take you through part of my portfolio. The area that I chose to highlight is area number 3. Area number 3 is applied content and discipline specific knowledge as reflected in state and/or national standards. I chose this area because I am very proud of the artifacts that I chose for this area, and I use what I have showcased here every day in my teaching. The 2 artifacts that I have for Area 3 are a content knowledge paper and a differentiation strategies website. These 2 artifacts demonstrate my content knowledge and how it is used in my classroom. The content knowledge paper was written in part of a teaching portfolio for C&T 738 Applied Research in the Classroom, Middle and Secondary Mathematics in May 2011. This paper shows the breadth of my knowledge in math. I am well-rounded in my math content knowledge, and I am able to teach any courses offered at any high school because I studied many different courses in college. This paper showcases my knowledge in algebra, geometry, probability and statistics, and analysis. In math, it is very important to have a deep understanding of the content and to use correct vocabulary. When students use correct vocabulary, they begin to understand the content more deeply. One of the biggest takeaways from my time in the math education program at KU with Dr. Gay was to use correct vocabulary and correct language. 6 years into my teaching, I do not use the words cancel when discussing dividing to 1 or subtracting to 0. I also force my students to remove that from their language. In this paper, I look at the different courses that I took while at KU. I took 2 classes in algebra while at KU. The 2 classes were linear algebra and modern algebra. I chose to showcase my knowledge on matrices from linear algebra. This knowledge is very relevant to my teaching. Algebra 1 and 2 are my favorite courses to teach, and each year I teach systems of equations and solving them using matrices. I also teach the quadratic formula in both Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, and it is always fun for me to show the students the proof behind the formula that they are using. Many of the proofs showcased in this paper I have been able to use to show to my students. This activity enriches their knowledge in the material and shows them that someone did not just make this stuff up, but instead it was proven and can still be proven today, even by them. This paper helped me to understand how I could use the knowledge I gained in college and to apply it to my teaching of high school level courses. Another example here is the zero product property. This is used in Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, and it helps the students to see that they can solve it or they can prove it themselves also, and this is where what we study comes from. The Differentiation Strategies website was created as a final project for CNT 803, Differentiating Curriculum and Instruction. In this website, I showcase 6 different differentiation strategies that can be used in an Algebra 2 classroom. On this website, I have a parent letter that is an example of what could be used to help parents better understand what a differentiated classroom is and why it is important and helpful for students. Next, I have the 6 different activities that I prepared for differentiation. Each one is differentiated based on content, product, or process, and then the student's interests, readiness, or learning profile. First, I have the cubing strategy, and I differentiated it based on content and readiness. The activity is a cube with 6 different problems on it. I made this cube for a unit on exponential and logarithmic equations. The students will roll the cube and then answer the question either individually or with the assistance of the group. If they are unsure of how to solve the problem, they may roll one more time and then they must attempt that problem. I created different cubes for different groups within the class. I would homogeneously group them together based on ability and readiness level. One cube has more basic problems, while another cube has enrichment problems for students who have already shown mastery on the basic problems. I would use this particular activity as a review. In order to determine which groups I would put them in, I would first need to use some sort of pre-assessment data. For this, I would use formative assessments like homework quizzes or announced quizzes that I've given in class to divide them up into groups. Some of the possible problems or challenges that may occur is just group work and keeping the students on task. So what I try to do is be very aware of who I'm grouping together, and then when I'm making my groups, I assign one student to be in charge of keeping the group on track. Second, I have the compactor strategy. The compactor is used with individual students based on pre-assessment data. If a student shows 90% mastery on a pre-assessment, then a compactor is used to provide enrichment activities for the student. This strategy helps teachers to organize data on individual students and individualize the enrichment based on a student's interest. In this example, I used community members and the library as resources to help the students see more of the real-world applications of exponential and logarithmic equations. Here you see my example. It's divided into 3 parts. The first part is the curriculum areas to be considered for compacting. So here you provide a brief description of the material that's being covered in order to know what needs to go on the pre-assessment. Then the procedures for compacting basic material is the activities that the students use. So in this case, it was a pre-test over the material. Then acceleration and/or enrichment activities. It's the activities that are going to provide advanced level learning experiences in addition to what the regular curriculum is. So I had the students investigate real-world applications of exponential and logarithmic functions, and they were to describe the fields that are influenced by these functions. So one of the ways that they could do that is interview a professional that uses exponential and logarithmic functions in their job and write a paper on the uses and functions that they provide. Third, I have a learning menu. I made this learning menu for a project on data analysis. The students were able to choose one of the 9 areas to research data on and then determine if the relationship would be linear, quadratic, or exponential. By providing the learning menu, I'm giving students the opportunity to choose one of the areas that interests them. For example, NBA salary. Students who are interested in sports may choose to pick that topic. And then processing speed of computers. Students that are interested in technology are more likely to pick that area. The fourth strategy was a rubric used for the same project on data analysis as the learning menu. During this course, I learned about the importance of rubrics. I gave the rubric out before assigning the project so students were able to prepare and understand what was expected of them. Rubrics should be clear, and that helps the students to ask more meaningful questions rather than questions about expectations. Here you see that the rubric is divided into point categories so that students are aware of what they need to do to receive the maximum points. Rubrics are also easily individualized. This rubric was easily adapted for individual students based on their readiness levels. The fifth strategy is a learning contract. Learning contracts are extremely helpful with students who are unorganized or struggling. They are a great way to communicate expectations with students and with parents. In this example, I created a learning contract for a long-term assignment over factoring. Because factoring is a skill that students are expected to have mastered before Algebra 2, we must find another way to review the material without using too much class time. The long-term packet is helpful, and this learning contract helps the students to be aware of what is needed from them. The learning contract also helps the students to chunk the assignment into more manageable time rather than waiting until the last minute to complete it. In the differentiation strategy, learning contracts are a written agreement between teacher and the student. Learning contracts can be used to remind students of expectations and as a checklist. Expectations and standards should be clearly stated in the learning contract. Learning contracts can be differentiated in many ways. Within the contract, teachers can provide different checklists for students, assignments based on readiness level or interests, goals based on students' readiness level, and times the student will work in and out of class on a project or assignment. Learning contracts can also be used to address behavior in the classroom. Learning contracts have so many different ways they can be used to help teachers and students. The last strategy is concept mapping. I have found concept mapping very helpful for students in Algebra 2. It is especially helpful in any concept that requires multiple steps. Often in high school, students begin to struggle with math because the steps become longer and they have more to keep track of. Concept maps also help me as a teacher plan units. Concept maps are also great accommodations for students, especially on semester and final exams where there is more material to use. Concept maps provide great study guides for students to refer to. This concept map is an example of how I prepare for a unit. So I started with the topic of rational functions, and I divided it into 4 different topics of the key terms that I need to define with the students, the prior knowledge that they need to have mastered in order to be successful in the unit, the common misconceptions to watch out for so to make sure they don't make any mistakes, and then the future topics that it will connect to later in their learning. My next steps after completing my master's program will be to continue teaching in the classroom for a few more years while exploring and preparing to go back to school to get my PhD in curriculum and instruction. This program inspired me to continue to learn and grow and to help others learn and grow. I have always been the teacher to help new teachers, especially those who have begun teaching through the alternative certification program. My long-term goal would be to work with people who aspire to become teachers either as a professor at a university or working with alternative certification programs to develop teachers. Working in a state where most teachers are certified through alternative programs, I have seen the lack of readiness and have taken on the role of sharing my knowledge from my undergraduate and graduate courses with them. I enjoy this and hope to work to develop teachers in my future.